Hi, everybody. Auntie speaks. We're going to have a lot of fun today. We're going to take a look at a bunch of teachers and how they love to teach their children that, white people are bad, that white people are fascists, that white people are your oppressor, they're privileged, and all of these lovely things that teach kids such great qualities. So here we go. So a teacher in the San Diego School District reportedly defined fascist for high school students as whites, heterosexuals, Christians, Trump, and the entire Republican Party. Fascists, which to the left of this country is just not a word that matters anymore. I don't think that's what I would teach little munchkins, not only because it is like completely and utterly inaccurate, but if you do that, you are doing really, really close to what the actual fascists did. They did take a group of people and they dehumanized them, and look what happened. I don't know if I need to spell that out. Maybe I do. But they did it through propaganda, step by step, making you feel like the Jewish community were not human. Okay, so here's another one. Teacher made white elementary school children apologize to black kids for their skin color. Yes, Martin Luther King is rolling in his grave. We now tell black students to hate their white counterparts. I guess Malcolm X won. This is probably not something we would do. Back in the 40s and the 50s, the problem with racism were parents teaching their kids to be racist, where they're not naturally like this. Yes, all races are tribal. That's how we evolved. We evolved in our own tribe to recognize people inside and outside of the tribe. It didn't necessarily have anything to do with color. It could be hair color. It could be, size, lots of things. So there is inherent in all groups, a tribal mentality, but we taught kids not to look at that. What happens if you start teaching kids to look at that? You know what you build? A bunch of little racists. That's what you build. That's why you see all these TikToks that coming out of these black young kids who are the most racist people I have ever seen in my life. And white young people saying stuff about their own race, which is like, okay, hate yourself. Okay, we're going to look at some other fun examples of some teachers teaching some really fun stuff.
No, I'm not teaching white kids to hate themselves. I love all my kids. I'm teaching my white students that their white skin is their superpower and they can use it for evil or for good. You see, white privilege exists. But you see, my students understand that white privilege has nothing to do with their lives. They understand that they can have a really, really hard life, but that the color of their skin hasn't added to their life being harder. They know that purely being born white affords them certain privileges that their classmates of color don't have.
Being born white affords you privileges that their other students of color don't have? Why is that a good thing? Why would you teach somebody that? All you are going to do is teach racism, because you are teaching kids to judge other people by the color of their skin when they didn't do anything to deserve that. Why would you do this to kids? Why? Not only is it not true, but to teach this to kids builds racists. That's basically like ABC, how to build a racist. Why? Well, because I don't know, if you're in a class and you're black and the teacher is saying all these white kids have something over on you, you might start having some animus against those white students, right? So you could create racists among the black students, and the white students are sitting there going, well, I don't know, my dad died when I was 5 and my mother works 2 jobs and I barely have enough food on the table. I don't know what kind of privilege I have. Barack Obama's children, have they suffered? Have they suffered? This makes no sense. You are creating racists. You are a bad, bad person.
So then, what is white privilege? White privilege is when people who are white have additional benefits, advantages, and fewer barriers to overcome than people of color. That doesn't mean that if you're white, you aren't talented or smart or your life is easy. It means that you have extra privileges just because of the color of your skin. Really? Yes, really. So, what are some of those advantages?
Once again, why would you be teaching young kids? Why would you be teaching young kids this? You're immediately separating them. You're telling the black kids that there is something that these white kids have that you don't. How is that good? How is that good for children to separate themselves? All this does is teach animosity.
Like the privilege of always seeing people who look like you in books and movies. That might seem like no big deal, but imagine if no one looked like you in your favorite movie. Wouldn't that make you feel left out or sad? Or it can be in the people who are usually in charge, like teachers, your parents' boss, and presidents. Those people are usually white. This is probably something you've never really thought about. That's okay. But don't you often wonder why those people are often white and not another color?
I hate to tell you something, but yeah, this is a majority white country. I know you don't want it to be, but you know, them's the facts. African Americans make up 13% of the population. And I've really never even understood why Hispanics are like in a different class. Most Hispanics I know are less brown than I am. I don't quite understand why they're separated from me at all. I don't understand why you want to separate black people from me just because I'm white. Oh, so why are the majority of the people they see white? Well, because they're only 13% of the population. What do you want us to do? Clone them so they become 50 or 60% of the population? What do you want us to do?
This study showed that, and I realized that it also addressed a black teacher, that's not who I'm talking to, white people, or white teachers in this case, are more likely to seek out bad behavior in black boys. That's not because, it's not a conscious thought. Well, for some people it might be, but for a lot of us it's not. For a lot of us it really is just such an automatic, I don't know if it's, I don't know exactly where it comes from, but if I had to guess, I would say it probably comes from inherent bias. This is what I mean when I say that white people are probably inherently racist.
Okay, so here we have another educator, and she says that white people are inherently racist, which is just super, super awesome. And she's using this crazy study where it took a look at people and watched them to see if they were watching black kids versus white kids. And studies like this lead to really, really bad things. Why? Because we have a terrible problem in our school systems right now with discipline. And it's not just discipline with black kids, it's discipline with white kids, it's discipline from A to Z. Both of my parents were educators. They were both teachers. And they both got out of it because of very specific things. And one of them was discipline. You could no longer discipline children. My father took another job to make more money. And then when he retired, he wanted to go back to teaching because he really loved it. He loved teaching kids. But we told him he couldn't do it because when he was teaching back in the 70s, if a kid was bad, you took a ruler and you slapped him. You slapped him and that kid would turn right around. Well, you can't do that anymore. And so what this teacher is talking about is this supposed bias in disciplining Black kids versus white kids. So this leads to some really bad stuff. And I just happen to know it happened in St. Paul, Minnesota. So if you're not familiar with St. Paul, it's a really large city. Well, a really large city for the Northwest. I'm sorry, for the Midwest. And they tried this, where they basically said you could not discipline Black students anymore. You could discipline white students. White students could be suspended. They could give discipline all over the place, but Black students could not. So what happened? Exactly what you think is going to happen. A bunch of teachers started quitting because they were being attacked in their classroom and they couldn't do anything about it. Teachers were getting choked, they were getting punched, and these kids were not suspended. They were sent right back to the class of the teacher that they just punched. Yes. Okay. So we have got to stop this nonsense. These teachers are teaching racism to kids. And you complain about white supremacy that is all over the place, which basically is non-existent in today's world. You know what you're going to do? You are going to build white supremacists. You are going to build racists, because you take that white kid and you teach him from age 5 that everything is his fault and his race is to blame for everything. And he goes through school having that drummed into his head and drummed into his head and drummed into his head. And then he goes to college, you know what? And he doesn't get into college because a couple of Black kids or a couple of these kids were given favors. A couple of women were given favors over him. And then he finally gets into a college and he graduates. And then he doesn't get the job. The job is given to a woman instead of him because he's a white straight male. You know what? You are going to create a racist. That is what you are going to create. So you are basically creating a self-fulfilling prophecy. We had gotten rid of racism in the 90s. It was basically non-existent from what I could see. We had Black people in the workforce. We had Hispanic people in the workforce, and we did not care. Nobody cared. Nobody cared. Now, if you're a woman, at the beginning of my career, that might have been a problem, but it went away pretty quickly. So guys, stop it. Stop it. Stop doing this stuff. We need to come back together and treat everybody as an individual. Everybody's a human being and just treat everybody the same. Let's go back to the golden rule, which is, if you don't want to be treated that way, then you shouldn't treat other people that way. All right, guys, like, comment, and subscribe. I really appreciate all the support. Thank you so much.